Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, जगन्नाथ बलेश्वर माई की जय, नरसिंह भगवान की जय, पंचतत्व की जय, षड गोस्वामी की जय, गुरु परंपरा की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की जय, पिता गौर प्रेमानंद। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं, स्वदीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God in Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke tir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service of God, who is praised with answered songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So Hare Krishna, Prabhu's Matayis, welcome all of you and thank you for joining and keeping up the appointment with Krishna. So continuing, see every Saturday, the series of Shiva started from the first canto, first chapter. Now, last Saturday we saw the first canto, the fourth chapter, first half up to this verse of 16. So next, from 17 to the last 33rd verse, we will be discussing. And so, of course, a few summarizing of the previous verses as well. So let us just at least recite two verses, very important verse, 17 and 18. From first canto, fourth chapter, the verse number 17 and 18. It's a beautiful verse and very important for us to relate in our current situations. Bhautikānām ca bhāvān shaktirāsam ca tatkritam ashraddadhrānā sattvan durmedhan prasitāyushah durbhagamscha janan vikshya munir divyena chakshusha sarvavarnānya dadhyo hitam amogadrik kanam cha bhavanam shaktirasam cha tatkritam ashraddadhanan nihsatvan durmedan rasitayushah durbhagamsha janan vikshya munir divyena chakshusha sarvavarnashramana dadhyo hitam amogadrik. Just one of you, or one or maximum two of you can recite these two verses. Anybody wants to recite? You can.
Hare Krishna, may I?
Shall I recite?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, Balaji Prabhu.
Mataji, please go ahead.
Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām shaktihāsam ca tatkritam ashvaddhānāni sattvan Sattva, I'm not getting that.
Nisatwan.
Sattva, Durmedhan, Hrisitayushah, Durbaghancha Janan Vikshya, Munir Divyena Chakshusha, Sarva Varnashramanam, Yedridhyau Hitamavadhyatrik. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Balaji Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dandavad Pranam.
Hmm.
Mautiganam cha bhavanam shaktihrasam cha tatkritam ashratanat nishatvan turmedan rasitayushah durbakamscha janan vikshya munirdivyena sakshusha sarva varnashramanam yat tatyauhitam amokhatrik.
Thank you. So let us see the word synonyms. Bhautikānām cha, also of matter. Bhavanam, actions. Shakti rasam cha, and deterioration of natural power. Tat kritam, rendered by that. Ashraddhadhanam, of the faithless. Nisatvan, impatient due to want of the mode of goodness. Durmedhan, dull-witted. Rasita, reduced. Ayushaha, of duration of life. Durbhagan, cha, also the unlucky. Janan, people in general. Vikshya, by seeing. Munihi, the Muni. Divyena, by transcendental. Chakshusha, vision. Sarva, all. Varna ashramana, of all the statuses and orders of life. Yat, what? Dadhyav, contemplated. Hitam, welfare. Amogadri, one who is fully equipped in knowledge. Translation purpose is Divan Geshwara Prabhupada ki jai. See, very nice for translation purpose. Please hear very carefully. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. Purport. The unmanifested forces of time are so powerful that they reduce all matter to oblivion in due course. In Kali Yuga, last millennium of a round of 4 millenniums, the power of objects deteriorates by the influence of time. In this age, the duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced, and so is the memory. The action of matter has also not so much incentive. The land does not produce food grains in the same proportions as it did in other ages. The cow does not give us as much milk as it used to give informally. The production of vegetables and fruits is less than before. As such, all living beings, both men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food. So due to want of so many necessities of life, naturally the duration of life is reduced, the memory is short, intelligence is meager, mutual dealings are fully of hypocrisy, and so on. You can very much relate, right? So the great sage Vyasadeva could see this by his transcendental vision. As an astrologer can see the future fate of a man, or an astronomer can foretell and lunar eclipses. Those liberated souls who can see through the scriptures can foretell the future of all mankind. They can see this due to their sharp vision of spiritual attainment. And all such transcendentalists who are naturally devotees of the Lord are always eager to render welfare service to the people in general. They are the real friends of the people in general, not the so-called public leaders who are unable to see what is going to happen 5 minutes ahead. So in this age, the people in general, as well as their so-called leaders, are all unlucky fellows, faithless in spiritual knowledge and influenced by the age of Kali. They're always disturbed by the various diseases. At the present age, there are so many TB patients and TB hospitals, but formerly this was not so, time was not so unfavorable. The unfortunate men of this age are always reluctant to the transcendentalists who are representatives of Srila Vyasadeva and selfless workers, always busy in planning something which may help everyone in all statuses and all. The greatest philanthropists are those transcendentalists who represent this mission of Vyasa, Narada, Madhava, Chaitanya, Rupa, Saraswati, etc. They are all one. The personalities may be different. The aim of the mission is one and the same, namely to take souls back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada's transcendental purport ki jai. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimarantya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Supadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sagara Raghunatamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shri Vishaka Vitamcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patidana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yanta Pravishya Mamavachimam Prasuptam Sanjeevayati Akila Shakti Dhrasvadhamnam Nanyam Chahasta Charana Shravatugadin Prana Namo Bhagavate Vishayatubhyam Namo Shri Krishna Krishna Padrishmati Mahashri Swamiti Namri Namo Shri Krishna Krishna Padrishmati Vasa Hirvishashmi Vasa Jai Shri Krishna. So Hare Krishna Prabhupada, thank you again. Welcome. Thank you very much for keeping the appointment. See, we all assembled here not to prove anything. I am hearing Bhagavatam, I am learning. Of course, everybody is learning. But we are not here to prove anything, but we have to here to improve ourselves, correct? Not to prove, but to improve. See, one can certainly see directly the presence of Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami. So one has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative of Shukadeva Goswami and no one else. If one at all wants to see the Lord Sri Krishna in the pages, okay. So Shukadeva Goswami, he presented Bhagavatam as he heard it from his great father. And so also, Suta Goswami Bhagavatam as he heard it from Shukadeva Goswami. Because in the assembly where Shukadeva Goswami is giving Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, Suta Goswami also was present. So, he is presenting Bhagavatam as he heard it from Shukadeva Goswami. The Prabhupada says, simple hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. Everybody say hearing is there, but we have to listen also. There's a difference between hearing and listening, right? Hear means it from here, this here goes out of here. Listening means you meditate on the points, you try to realize, understand, right? So, one must realize the text with proper attention. And more important is, one should hear with rapt attention from the real person. And then he can at least realize Lord Krishna in every page of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the secret of knowing Bhagavatam. It is given in 1.3.44, the previous last verse of the previous chapter, third chapter. And Prabhupada very beautifully says, no one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and meeting. Somehow or the other, hears with rapt attention from the right person. At the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Shri Krishna in person in the pages of Bhagavatam. Very encouraging statement. No? That means we have to, with rapt attention, we should hear with love and devotion, no? To Krishna Katha. So that verse only, 1.3.44, Suta Goswami says, has to speak, no? So he says, I will speak as far as I have realized. What a beautiful statement. He says, I will speak as far as I have realized. So this genuine humility, it really attracts the attention of the audience. That's why the first verse of this chapter, 141, Prabhupada and the purport very beautifully says, the leader of the assembly, Shaunaka, made the value of the speaker. Because Suta Goswami simply by his uttering, Yatha Ditam, Yatha Mati. Whatever I realized. No? So therefore, he was to congratulate him in ecstasy. because Suta Goswami humble, having full confidence in the previous acharyas. And the sages are very eager to hear from him. So I think all of you are so eager to hear Krishna Katha, right? Not that a person is speaking. Different people are coming and speaking Bhagavatam. But you should know, Bhagavatam is direct from the acharyas, from the disciplic succession. So the eagerness, that is very, very important. See, we can see in the 8th verse, in the current chapter, 148, Shaunaka Muni, while glorifying the quality of Shukadeva Goswami, he very nicely mentions the time he stays in any household. He just sagodohana matram, time for milking a cow. He says, Shukadeva is accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did just that to sanctify the residence. And the purport also, Prabhupada very nicely says, Wilson, right? That Shukadeva Goswami, he met Parikshit Maharaj and explained the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Shukadeva Goswami was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence more than the time of milking a cow, maybe maximum half an hour. And you just take the alms from the fortunate householder when he takes alms, right? So that was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. See, in 11th canto, 8th chapter, 9th verse, the Avadhuta Brahmana, he says, a saintly person should accept only enough food, body and soul together. He should go from door to door, accepting just a little bit of food from each family. Thus, he should practice the occupation of the honeybee. He was talking about the honeybee. So this is a very important lesson to be learned from the honeybee, especially for devotees who are preaching the glories of the Lord. See, the natural constitutional position of honeybee is to go from one flower to another. In a similar manner, saintly persons travel from door to door, accept just a little bit of food from each family. Why? Just to keep their right. And moreover, they do not take shelter permanently in any family, because their permanent shelter is Supreme Lord Krishna. And they know the real purpose of life. The reason for their traveling from door to door is also not for their sustenance, to spread the message of Supreme Lord Krishna to the suffering souls. So they are mercifully giving to the grahasthas who are stuck in materialist life to hear about the glories of Krishna and to serve them and thereby help the people to advance in spiritual life. So therefore, Shukadeva Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position, right? So from his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. So another important point Prabhupada says is, such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. So one who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions, right? And thus become subservient to worldly men. So for one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much than drinking poison and committing suicide. See, even the Goswamis of Vrindavana, they never used to sleep under the shade of the same tree for more than one night. To that extent, they were careful not to become attached to the temporary shelters. So from the examples of such great souls, we should take the lesson of Madhukari from the honeybee and travel only for exchanging the message of glories of the Lord and leave the place as soon as Krishna Katha is over. Otherwise, it becomes Gramya Katha. See, after class is over, main point should be, there was a question, what is the difference between advanced devotee and a struggling devotee, right? Michael Moore says just 1 minute. What is that 1 minute? Once the class is over, close the book and start speaking about how is the weather, how are you, and all those things. That means this is Gramya Katha. He is a struggling devotee. Advanced devotee, what he does? He still ponders on the points which was discussed. He thinks how I can apply in my life. Which is very useful for me to practice in my life, right? That is an advanced devotee. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is completely auspicious form of the Lord, has come to us because of this inevitable notice of death to Parikshit Maharaj within 7 days. But in the contrary, the material world, see, Parikshit Maharaj says that the Lord has graciously overtaken him by the notice. What a beautiful statement. So this is exemplary position of a pure devotee. Prabhupada says in the purport of first canto, 19th chapter, 14th verse, the reasons for the death notice for Parikshit Maharaj. First one, although Maharaj was born in the family of devotees, and second, although securely trained for the association of the Lord, but still found that the allurement of mundane family life so strong, Hridaya Grantihi. Therefore, because of that, Parikshit Maharaj has to be detached by the plan of the Lord. So this makes us completely awestruck and wonder. Therefore, he is called Mahabhagavat. So his activities are also transcendental and wonderful, just like the Lord himself. See, the sages of Naimisharanya, they wanted to hear wonderful activities of Parikshit Maharaj. So they humbly submitted and requested Suta Goswami to narrate his wonderful qualities. So thereby, in the 9th verse of this chapter, we said, Maharaj Parikshit was great first-class devotee of the Lord. And that his birth and activities are all wonderful. So please tell about him. That's what the sages were telling. So Prabhupada, in one of the unparalleled purport, emphasizes only one word, Maha Ascharyam. Very wonderful. Why? Number one, Parikshit Maharaj's birth was wonderful because he was protected by the Lord in the womb of his mother. Number two, Parikshit Maharaj's activities are wonderful, that he subdued Kali and protected the cows and Brahmins. Prabhupada says his death is also wonderful because he got his death, which is wonderful for any mortal being in the world, right? Thus, he prepared himself for passing away by sitting down on the banks of the Ganges and hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. See, we saw that death note is not very palatable for all of us, because none of us want to die at all. And we want to live permanently in this planet, in spite of so many difficulties we undergo. Therefore, our activities are not wonderful because, one, death comes to us without any notice. Two, we love this mortal planet and bodily attachment is so much deep-rooted. Three, we do not realize the transcendental Lord nor his abode. Four, basically we have not realized till date that we are spirit souls and part and parcel of Krishna. And five, as my Guru Maharaj always says, that we never want to prepare for death, although we are all condemned to death. This means any notice of the so-called unfavorable circumstances are actually the plan of the Lord. And that is what is to be realized by all of us. It is a very difficult position for us to digest, right? But at least we should realize that after so many years of hearing Bhagavatam, at least some sanity should prevail in our mind, right? So this should make us go deeper to the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and at least try to develop the taste for this transcendence. Srila Prabhupada gives 3 easy guidelines which we should follow in all circumstances for a successful execution of our spiritual life. What are those? Number 1, always be faithful to Krishna. Number 2, always be guided by the spiritual masters. Number 3, always follow the religious principles based on their guidance. He says, if this is the aim of our life, then our life would also become wonderful. So Srimad Bhagavatam is full of questions and answers. See, the questions are really worth meditating, because every one of those questions are meant for the upliftment of our practical life and attainment of self-realization. See, in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, Sri Shaunaka Rishi, he posted 6 primary questions, which we saw in the previous classes, to Suta Goswami, the answer for which is the entire Bhagavatam. And again, in the 4th chapter, Shaunaka Rishi puts forward more questions. This time to understand why did a great saintly king like Parikshit Maharaj decide to give up his life on the pretext of Brahmana's boy's curse. So one of those questions is worth meditating. Huh? And more important is the answer given by Srila Sudha Goswami in a later chapter. Shaunaka Rishi in the 12th verse in this chapter, he says, those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness. They do not live for any selfish interest. So, even though the emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up this mortal body, which was a shelter for others? So, this is a very thoughtful question. It is well known, no, that Parikshit Maharaj was a great devotee and an ideal king. So, either way, his activities are bound to be completely dedicated to the welfare of the people. The kings usually risk their life also in the battlefield. For what? To save their citizens from attacks by enemies. So as long as Parikshit Maharaj was there, all the welfare projects were functioning perfectly. Citizens were completely happy. So it is a natural expectation that if Parikshit Maharaj stayed as long as he can, then the citizens could have lived peacefully that much longer. So considering this, being a powerful king, he could have easily averted the Brahmana boy's curse. He could have and ruled the world for many more years, right? Why did he why he did not do that? Was he not connected about the welfare of his, concerned about the welfare of his citizens? That's why Sutta Goswami very beautifully replies in 1st Canto 18th chapter, verse number 5 and 8. In the 5th verse, he says, as long as the great powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of, there is no chance that the personality of Kali will flourish. And in the 8th verse, he says, Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, like the bees, who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious. So since Parikshit Maharaj was a pure devotee of the Lord and a powerful king, Kali could not enter in as long as he was around. And he also knew very well that whether he likes it or not, the age of Kali has to set in, as ordained by Krishna. So, Parikshit Maharaj, as a pure devotee, he did not want to meddle with the plans of Krishna. But at the same time, he wanted to make an organized effort to save the citizens from the effects of Kali. It's very beautifully mentioned by Prabhupada in his book, where he says, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. What is that? One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Maharaj Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy names. And thereby he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. So Parikshit Maharaj took the advantages of Kali Yuga as a good sign and lay his life for the welfare of the citizens. In fact, as an added bonus, we want bonus, right? So as an added bonus, Parikshit Maharaj showed us how to attain perfect death by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. See, for thousands of years, as a result of his magnanimity of the great Parikshit Maharaj, we are all relishing this great transcendental scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is absolutely essential for tasting devotional service and go back to God at the end of this life. So let us see how to do simple and sincere bhakti. That comes in the current verse, 17 and 18. See, it says, in this age, the duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced. And so is the memory, correct? Our memory is very short. What did we eat for dinner yesterday? Correct? So the action of matter is also not so much incentive. The land does not produce food grains in the same proportion as it did in the other ages. The cow does not give as much milk as it used to give formerly. the production of vegetables and fruits is less than before. You can see that, right? So much. That's why the cost of everything is increasing, right? See, how true is Srila Prabhupada? How true his words are even today? The action of matter has also not so much incentive. See, if you want to do something, there should be some incentive, bro. So even the nature, see, we may put in so much effort in our activities, but the productivity is not proportional to the endeavor. And Srila Vyasadeva has predicted this so long ago. The reason is the increasing amount of our sinful activities every day. What was considered morally wrong a few years ago has become a legally approved act today. See the sad state of affairs, right? The rate at which Kali Yuga is degrading, we cannot imagine what is going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. But the same matter which does not give the right incentive will be more productive if handled by a devotee. See, everything has its nature. A devotee handles everything with the consciousness that it is a property of Krishna. The different entities like land, cow, they also reciprocate positively. See, the cows and other animals also reciprocate according to the way they are being treated. If we treat them nicely, the cow gives so much more milk. So we have the world around us. Violence is not committed only to the living entities. Every act of ours, like, see, we think violence means beating and killing and all. No, not only that. Just hear this. First, like keeping our surroundings clean, keeping our things organized, washing our clothes nicely, behaving simple, and all these have a bearing on our consciousness and also of our surroundings. So such a clean life with sincere chanting of the holy names and serious study of Srimad Bhagavatam Bhagavad Gita, it will give us a healthy life. See, formerly, there was only one Veda by the name Yajur. And the 4 divisions of sacrifices were there specifically mentioned. But to make them more easily performable, Veda was divided into 4 divisions of sacrifice. Why? Just to purify the occupational service of the 4 orders. The 4 Vedas are Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And then there are the Puranas, Mahabharats, which are known as the 5th Veda. See, after the Vedas were divided into 4 divisions, Paila Rishi, he became the professor of Rig Veda. Jaimini, of the Sama Veda. And Vaishampayana became glorified by the Yajur Veda. Then Angir Muni, he was entrusted with Atharva Veda. And Roma Arshana was entrusted with the Puranas. See, the Veda is one. And the reasons for its divisions in many parts are explained from the 24th verse, where Prabhupada says, the seed of all knowledge or Veda is not a subject matter which can easily be understood by any ordinary man. See, no one should try to learn the Vedas who is not qualified Brahmana. And this has been wrongly interpreted in so many ways. See, there are a class of men who claim Brahmanical qualifications simply by their birthright, that I am born in Brahmana family, so I am a Brahmana. They claim it's a monopoly of only Brahmanas, Brahmana caste only. And another section of the people is an injustice not to member of other castes who in the Brahmana family. But Prabhupada says both of them are misguided. Vedas are the subjects which had been explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord Krishna. So the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Persons who are in the mode of passion and they cannot understand the subject matter of Vedas. So the ultimate goal of Vedic Krishna to understand the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead. very rarely understood by those who are in the mode of passion and ignorance. In the Satyuga, everyone was situated in the mode of goodness. Gradually, the mode of goodness declined during Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and slowly the general mass of people became corrupt. In the present age, which is the Kali Yuga, mode of goodness is almost nil. Therefore, the general mass of people, and for the people who are really struggling in this Kali Yuga, the kind-hearted, the powerful sage Vyasadeva, he divided the Vedas in various ways so that they may be practically followed by less intelligent persons in the modes of passion and ignorance. That's why another wonderful verse in the next 25th verse, beautiful verse, there it says, out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Therefore, he compiled a great historical narration called Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born. Let us see why he says twice born and all this, right? Rupa says in the purport, the friends of the twice born families are those who are born in the families of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, or the spiritually cultured family, but who themselves are not equal to their forefathers. So such descendants are not recognized. Why? Because of want of purificatory achievements. See, the purificatory activities begin even before the birth of a child. All of us know that. And the seed-giving reformative process is called Garbhadana Samskara. So one who has not undergone the such Garbhadana Samskara or spiritual family planning is not accepted as being of an actual twice born. The Garbhadana Samskara is followed by other purificatory processes, out of which the sacred ceremony is one of them. This is performed at the time of spiritual initiation. After this particular samskara, one is rightly called twice born. So one birth is calculated during the seed-giving samskara. It is calculated at the time of spiritual initiation. The one who has been able to undergo such important samskaras can be called a bona fide twice born. Now, if the father and mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called Duja Bandhus. So these are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice born families. The Duja Bandhus are classified with the Shudras and the woman class, who are by nature less intelligent. Prabhupada is writing this purport. The Shudras and the woman class do not have to undergo any samskara except the ceremony of marriage. So, in class of men, namely women, Shudras, and unqualified sons of the higher castes, they are devoid of necessary qualifications to understand the purpose of the transcendental Vedas. And for them, the Mahabharata was prepared. So the purpose of Mahabharata is to administer the Vedas. And therefore, within this Mahabharata, the summary Veda of Bhagavad Gita is placed. That's why people like stories, no? So the war and everything was very beautifully, politics and everything was there. So the whole Mahabharata is situation. And in that, he gave this, in the center, he gave the Bhagavad Gita. So people will try to understand the summary Veda of Bhagavad Gita. So the less intelligent are more interested in stories than in philosophy. Therefore, the philosophy of Vedas in the form of Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord Shri Krishna. So Vyasadeva and Krishna are both on the transcendental plane. Therefore, they collaborated in doing good to the fallen souls of this age. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It is the first book of spiritual values, as the Upanishads are. The Vedanta philosophy is the subject matter for study by the spiritual graduates. So only the postgraduate spiritual student can enter the spiritual or devotional service of the Lord. It is a great science. And the great professor of the Lord is the Lord himself in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And persons who can initiate others in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. That's why in the 26th verse, Vyasadeva was not satisfied with himself. We can see. He has written so much. Mahabharata, right? So many Upanishads, Puranas. But he was not satisfied with himself. Although he had prepared literatures, Vedic value for all the welfare of the people in Kali Yuga. So it was expected, satisfied by all such activities. But ultimately, he was not satisfied. Vyasdeva was not satisfied. So how can we be satisfied, right? That's why the sage, he began to search out the cause of not being satisfied at heart. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart, right? So this satisfaction of heart has to be searched out beyond matter. No one can understand the importance of the Vedas without having under a strict disciplinary vow and disciplined succession. See, the Vedas, the spiritual masters, and the sacrificial fire must be worshipped by the desiring candidate. So all these intricacies of Vedic knowledge are systematically presented in the Mahabharata for the understanding of the labor class and the unqualified members of Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya families. So in this age, Mahabharata is more essential than the original Vedas. That's why the next 30th verse, Srila Vyasdeva was complete in all the details of Vedic achievements. Purification of the living being, which is submerged in matter, is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. But the ultimate achievement is different. So unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully, cannot be situated in the transcendental normal stage. That's why Srila Vyasdeva appeared to have lost the clue. Therefore, he felt dissatisfaction. That's why in the verse, the purport of 1.4.31 in this chapter, Prabhupada defines the normal condition of a living being. He says, the dissatisfaction which was being felt by Srila Vyasadeva is expressed in his own words. This was felt for the normal condition of the living being in the devotional service of the Lord. So unless one is fixed in the normal condition of service, neither the Lord nor the living being can be fully satisfied. We have to be fixed in the devotional service. So this defect was felt by Vyasadeva. When Narada Muni came, no? So his spiritual master was there. He just reached at that moment. Narada Muni could see through him that there is something wrong. But he knew what it is. So the root cause of the abnormal condition in this material world is dissatisfaction in our minds. We are not satisfied with anything. We are greedy. We want more and more. So this dissatisfaction is brought about due to our engagement in activity not connected to Krishna. Krishna says in the seed verses of Bhagavatam, right? Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, in the 34th verse, 2934. Anything that is which is not related to Krishna is of no value. And the teachings of Queen Kunti, Prabhupada mentions in the purport to verse 1829. Since we are reflections of Krishna, if we decorate Krishna, we also shall be decorated. If we satisfy Krishna, we shall become satisfied. So trying to satisfy our mind is the result of hankering, which we experience in this material world. We always hanker which we do not possess. And our mind is an expert in justifying hankerings. So we should always remember the guiding principle of Chanakya Pandita. Very nice point, which Chanakya Pandita says, Santosha Trishu Kartavyaha Swadare Bhojane Dhane Santosha Trishu na Kartavyaha Swadhyaya Japa Dhana Yaho Dhana Yoho. Here very carefully. One should be always satisfied with these three things. What are those? Their spouse, the food, and the amount of wealth they obtained. One should be always satisfied with three things. Their spouse, the food, and the amount of. One should never be satisfied with these three things. What are those? The amount of scriptural study, the amount of chanting, and the amount of charity they performed. So Srila Prabhupada highlights the danger of hankering for more wealth. Nectar of instruction, number 2, where he says, Karmis labor to accumulate more and more money for future generations only, because they do not know their future position. Interested only in getting more and more money for their sons and grandsons. Such foolish persons do not even know what their position is going to be in their next life. So if one stops this business of hankering for material things, and instead be satisfied by performing devotional service, the normal condition of a living being. You will not only be successful in this life, but also in the next. See, Narada Muni is very important in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So these 3 chapters in the first canto, particularly starting from 4th chapter, 4, 5, and 6, the whole story is squeezed into it. There are some nice shlokas to be remembered, which are in these chapters regarding the life of Narada Muni. The next chapter we see 5 and 6, right? We will see first how he appears in front of Vyasadeva. See, Vyasadeva was completely morose, and he didn't know what he was doing. After writing so many Vedic literatures, he was completely unhappy. And he himself tells the reason in the 31st verse. No, this may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear beings unto the infallible Lord. Devotional service is Bhagavata Dharma. There's a beautiful verse in the 2nd chapter of 1st canto Bhagavatam about Bhagavata Dharma. 1, 2, 6. 1st canto, 2nd chapter, 6th verse. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yeto bhaktiradhokshaje ahai tukiya pratihata yayatma suprasidhati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. So such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. He says, Paro dharmo is adhokshaje. This is Bhagavata Dharma. And Vyas Bhagavan himself points out he had divided the Vedas into 4 and had done so many things, but he did not glorify Krishna. That was the defect in his literature. And any literature without Krishna can never satisfy the author. We have so much literature around us, right? But now we are habituated to read, but at least now, for the at least we come to Krishna consciousness, we are habituated to read Srila Prabhupada's books. And really, we are not interested in other literatures. You see, the newspapers, 50 pages, to carry them is very difficult. And we don't find a single word about Supreme Absolute Truth there. We are residents of the Transcendental Abode Golok Vrindavan. That is why we don't release this rubbish dump, which is like crow's conference. And this was the defect that Vyasadeva points out. I haven't described the Bhagavata Dharma. This Dharma is dear to the Transcendentalist. And Lord, Krishna also likes this Dharma. Achyuta Priyaha. He says, Vyasadeva says, I haven't glorified this Dharma. And Narada Muni also instructs him the same way, because Narada Muni was the spiritual master of Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva asked him, what is the trouble with me? I have done so much, but I am not satisfied at all. Then in Bhagavata Mahatmya Puran, the Kumaras describe very nicely to Narada Muni that Vedas are here, no doubt. And Krishna is also described in the pages of Vedas. But this very nice point. The vital fluid of the tree is spread from the root, though it cannot be tasted. When that same fluid accumulates in the fruit, however, it tastes very delicious and it attracts everyone's mind. Very nice words to understand. See, Vedas are there. Now, suppose there is a mango tree. The mango juice is spread throughout the tree. But when we want to taste the juice, we have to eat the mangoes. You cannot go to the tree and start chewing the trunk or bark or leaves. Everywhere there, but you cannot get it. If you want to get it, you have to come to the fruit. In the same way, the Vedas are full of Krishna. But you cannot taste Krishna directly from the Vedas. There has got to be the essence of the Vedas. And this Bhagavatam is that sar. Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence. If you want to taste Krishna, if you want to get attracted to him, if you want to know him, if you want to recognize him, if you want to glorify him, then this is the thing. You have to come to the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai. And this is what Narada Muni instructs Vyasadeva. Please write the literature now and glorify Krishna continuously. And if you glorify Krishna like this, then that will satisfy you also. The same thing we have to do in our life. In our life, we may do so many other things. but nothing will satisfy us. That is our experience in daily life, correct? See, there is a famous quote that lazy mind is a devil's workshop. The symptom of Kali Yuga is laziness, right? So laziness degrades us both in this life as well as the next. Lazy people cannot please anyone in this world, but would be a source of trouble to people around them. So we should never be lazy in our maintenance activities, and definitely not be lazy when it comes to spiritual practices. So Srila Prabhupada, he says, devotional activities of the living beings. Bhagavad Dharma means devotional activities of the living beings, devotional service, right? It doesn't say just devotion. So as soon as devotion is there, you have to ingrain in your mind that devotional activities. Otherwise, what do we think? No, I am meditating, I am all right. No, devotional activity. It should be activity. See how a soul is very active. Even when it is in the body of a small child keeps moving his hands and legs. So also the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna is very active. In Bhagavad Gita 3.22, Krishna says, "Oh son of Pratha, there is no work within all three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties." So how much active and responsible should we be in our prescribed duties? If we are not active in our material responsibilities, we are bound to be lazy in spiritual sadhana as well. So we should never in executing our prescribed duties. See the evil effects of being lazy, our body will definitely glide down if we are lazy. Laziness also leads to diseases. We can very well realize that if we compare our own health with that of the ancestors, even 100 years ago, none of the diseases which we hear commonly now were present. See, apart from the fact that people ate food free from all pollution, we must also acknowledge how everyone were working hard, both physically and mentally, and so very healthy in those days, right? They could walk and were more energetic. My Guru Maharaj used to say, the more you can walk. The more you walk, the more you can walk. But unfortunately, we live in a world, we try to get everything instantly at the click of a button. So now we are prone to more and more diseases. So the vacuum felt by Vyasadeva was not due to his lack of knowledge. Bhagavad Dharma is purely devotional service to the Lord, to which nobody else has any access. Srimad Bhagavatam, of narrations of the transcendental activities of personality of Godhead. Although Vyasadeva was an empowered divinity, he still felt dissatisfaction because none of his works were the transcendental activities of the Lord properly explained. So they were confused by Krishna directly in the heart of Vyasadeva. And thus he felt the vacuum. So it is definitely expressed that without the transcendental loving service of the Lord, everything is void. But in the transcendental service of the Lord, everything is without any separate attempt at fruitive work or empirical philosophical speculation. That's what Prabhupada says in 1432. 33, the translation is very nice, where it says, with the auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Srila Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. Prabhupada says, Vidhi means Brahma, the first created living being. He is the original student as well as professor of the Vedas. He learned it from Sri Krishna and taught Narada first. So Narada is the second Acharya in the line of spiritual disciple succession. He is a representative of Brahma, and therefore he is respected exactly like Brahma, the father of all Vidhis, regulations. Similarly, all other successive disciples in the chain are also equally respected as representatives of the original spiritual master. This is very important for all of us to understand. So, time is of the essence. We can speak more and more, but this chapter is so. So now we see why Vyasadeva is regretting Yuga, and then Vyasadeva himself who has written so many literatures, himself feeling morose and disappointed and feeling uneasy, not satisfied. Why he is not satisfied? He has written so many things. That's why entry of Sri Narada Muni, spiritual master, who can why is dissatisfied? What is the problem? By engaging in what, sir, he will feel satisfied. Same way, when he come across spiritual masters, because we were all also moving around in malls and movies and so many things, enjoying sense gratification processes, until somebody, by the mercy of the Lord, spiritual master came into our life. It's not that we went in such purchasing. It's not a purchase. It's not a product. Spiritual master is not a product. We go to a mall and purchase. Oh, I like this brand. No, because of our desire, because we are hankering for something very spiritual. Krishna knows. He is the Paramatma, as Paramatma in our hearts. He knows what you want. So he sends a spiritual master into our life. And then the spiritual master, through his via medium, he knows he's through each person's heart. He knows what is troubling him, how he can be satisfied. So he gives the mantra, he gives the seva, the service, what has can be done. So each acharya in our moment was so wonderful, so glorious. Seshadripuram comes to all of them. So this, without the mercy of the spiritual master, nowhere. We would have been just wandering like this and wasted our human form of life. And we don't know. Again, we'll go back to our 84 lakh species. Again, we have to start. Just like, Prabhupada in one of the purposes, yes, sir, for a question. See, we are walking in the stairs, right? First to go to the first floor, second. We went up to the third floor, but suddenly we fell down. So after fall down, it's not that you can start from the third floor, step by step. That's why the circle of birth and death, again 84 lakh species. So be very careful. This human form is very, very rare. And the most fortunate thing we have come across is because we come under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Now this is a bus. We have boarded in this bus. Don't see here and there. There are so many attractions outside, right? Billboards and so many other things will be there. Don't get down on that bus. This bus will take you to the destination. Golok Vrindavan. We can go back, come back to God, just following Srila Prabhupada as it is. Hare Krishna. Gandhar Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari. Vancha Kalpadar Vishkripa Sandhubhai Vicha. Patidanam Pavan Vishnu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Mataji. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to glorify the Supreme Lord Krishna. We're not fortunate. Now Narada Muni has entered. So next week we can see how Narada Muni is giving the lessons for all of us to ingrain. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any questions or anything to share, any takeaway from today's lessons, which will be very useful for them in their daily life, and by which we can go back and back in this life.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you,
Hare
Ramchandra.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare
You
Krishna.
want to say
Thank you very much.
one time for Ramchandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Ram. Hare Ram. Ram Ram. Hare Hare.
Hare
Thank you, devotees, for joining. Please join daily for chanting and Gita class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramchandra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Please take care. Be safe. Hare Krishna.